Hello, best of your listeners, and welcome to the best real estate investing advice ever show. I'm Theo Hicks, and today I'll be speaking with Jim Monk. Jim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Theo?
I am doing well. Thanks for asking. Thank you for joining me. So a little bit about Jim. He is a founder of Clozzits. And so if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that he is in a closet right now. Clozzits is dedicated to increasing NOI and overall asset value, resulting in immediate rent increase at an average of 2 to 5%. He has 2 years experience in multifamily, and he's passively investing in 623 units. And his current focus is on optimizing closet space for multifamily companies. He is based in Dallas, Texas, and his website is Clozzits, CLOZZITS.com. So, Jim, you mind telling us some more about your background and then what you're focused on today?
Absolutely. So first thing, I hope you and your family are all doing well. Friends are all doing well with everything going on, coming from Big D to you, as well as, long-time listener, first-time caller. So I love what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
A little background on myself and what we're doing today. We are in the closet space. It's not an area that a lot of individuals think about, especially multifamily owners think about as a way to increase their revenue. But there are a lot of differences that are occurring, a lot of changes that are occurring in today's marketplace. And I'm excited to share that with you guys a little further. As you said, you want a little bit more about my background. Is that right, Theo? Sorry, Mark.
Yeah. And so when did you start Clozzits?
Okay, perfect. So myself and a partner started Clozzits roughly about 2 years ago. The way we got started was I was just exiting out of a company where I'd turned that company around, and company had been around for 40 years, was on a negative decline, and was able to take it from an Inc. 5,000 company. We grew it very rapidly. So I'm all about hyper growth, and that's been my background. So a little bit about my background before we get into a little bit more about what Clozzits is today. I came out of the financial services space. I'm what they would call a serial entrepreneur. So I, out of college, went to work for one of the largest insurance companies in the country. Farmers Insurance, rose through the ranks there. After about 7 or 8 years, I started getting the bug to start my own company. I exited. And then literally from my house to the time of the sale of the company that I created, Tritus Insurance, we got up to about 8,000 employees. So about 300 million in revenue, and sold 3 months before the fall of Lehman Brothers in 2008. So really dodged a bullet there.
Yeah,
really dodged a bullet. And so sold there, and then went into a technology play, scaled that up, and again sold to a Canadian-based company, and then moved into manufacturing. It was a calling from a small client of my previous company who said, "Hey, we've seen what you've done with your companies. Can you come in and do something else?" I felt the challenge to go in there and take this family-owned business and turn it around. And as I exited that one, I was sitting down with a friend of mine, Stephen Bolos, who, if most of you are not familiar with, started a company called United Renovations, which became Katerra. It was acquired by Katerra, which is a $5 billion company in the construction renovation space. And so Stephen has a massive background in the multifamily renovation business, doing tens of thousands of renovations. And as we were sitting there drinking coffee together and talking, he said, and this is roughly about 2.5 years ago, Theo, he had said, you really need to kind of figure out what your next play is going to be. And I was looking at real estate as a passive investor, like you talked about. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. What has not changed in the apartment space as it relates to renovations? And he sat down and he thought about it long and hard. He said, well, the problem you have today that most ownership is having, most REITs and others are having, is a lot of these properties, if they're not relatively new, they've been through 2 to 3 iterations of renovations. They've had the hard surfaces upgraded. They've had the appliances upgraded to stainless steel. The flooring's been upgraded. We put paint on this. So we're at a level right now where there's not a lot that can be done. And so I thought about it, and my question that I rephrased was, then what hasn't changed in the apartment at all then? And he said, well, the closet. And so we started researching that process of looking at the closet and saying, okay, is there a way for this to make business sense to the ownership? And that business sense needs to be, how can I improve my NOI? And how can I increase my asset value in a way that it ultimately makes business sense? 1 + 1 = 2. And so as I tell the story, we got into the manufacturing side. So Clozzits today is a manufacturer of an advanced closet system that we can either sell direct to the multifamily industry, which we do. We can sell through contractors, which we do, or we'll do a full turnkey solution to the company. And ultimately what we're doing is we're doing these either make-readies or renovation turns or installing a new construction. And we're showing a immediate impact to the NOI with what we consider, which is right behind me, a furniture grade quality product that is reasonably priced to make business sense. And so, as you mentioned, we're seeing a 2 to 5% rent increase. We're seeing our average customer today, after COVID here, post-COVID, at a 37% ROI, and usually they're breaking even after a 3rd to 4th year of the product being installed.
You said 37% ROI is typically what it is?
That is correct.
Okay. So you see, so are you typically installing these closets into would it be existing homes, or is it mostly you're getting in on the front end with a developer and then having them kind of planned into the development?
Great question. And so it's both. We didn't approach the multifamily, the developer space first, because really that's only about 5 to 8% of the marketplace with new developments. What we were looking at was the existing 90 to 95% of the market space and saying, how can we go on there and do this in a way where you can do it on the make-readies as residents are leaving, or how can you as an owner do this as an ability to do a lease up? And so we talked to companies like UDR, Alliance Group, Alliance Residential, the Harbor Group, big companies, Pinnacle on the management company side with their executive team. And we said, we're going to beta test this out. And so what do you need to see? And for them, it was all about the economics of it. And they wanted to look at it both from how do we do this to our existing and how do we do it in the new development side of things. And so the original focus was on existing and how to kind of rip out, tear out very quickly. And so within a 3-hour period, you go from a wire rack or MDF to what you see behind me today, which is a high quality product that allows that ownership of that property to now have something unique and something that people are willing to pay for. And that's the thing that we keep talking about, is the numbers are there. We have multiple case studies that talk about this, that today's residents want resort amenities. They're willing to pay for those resort amenities, and they're looking for ways to have additional space options, because let's be truthful on this, we're all wants to accumulate. Unfortunately, we all want to accumulate, and people want to, especially after COVID here, a lot of people are stay in place. They're working from home now, and they're really focusing on what can I do in the square footage that I live in to be more of a home.
Yeah, exactly. So, so you said that these are installed. So if I have an existing property, how do I know if my existing closet is big enough? Or, I mean, do you have like when I go to Clozzits and there's an array and I say, here's how, my closet is this big and these are the options. Like, how do I know what I can put? Like, what if my closet is really, really tiny? Like, do you have options for super tiny closets, or does it need to be a certain size already?
Again, good question. So typically what we'll do is, being a guy that's focused on the numbers myself, I always ask the client or that prospective property owner, what are you trying to achieve here? And a lot of times we're trying to guide them to say, I'm trying to get a rent increase first off. And our very first question is, can you get to a minimum of a $20 to $25 rent increase on a monthly basis? And the reason being is we found that break even based on our installation cost and overall cost of putting the product in is about $20 a month. And so anything above and beyond that is where our clients benefit immediately. They're cash flowing immediately off of our installation. And so what we'll do is we'll say, send us your designs as far as your layouts, your floor plans. We will, for free, do the design and layout of it and show you what the cost is going to be for each of those designs. And then the question we actually have a whole calculator that we built out, which goes into, Theo, which is, here's what the investment is. From the investment of the closet system, here's your cap rate on the property. Here is what a rent increase would look like at 20, 21, 22, so on dollars. And what we're calculating out is, here's what the ROI would be and really what the asset value is going to be if there's an exit. Because I think you have, at least our experience has been that you have two different types of ownership. You have the ones that are really wanting to hold for the long term and those who are wanting to keep for the short term. And depending on that approach and strategy, they're really looking at the numbers a little differently. And so we approach it if you're looking for the more immediate, for that NOI to see the rent increase, then here's what that means to you from an ROI perspective. And oh, by the way, if you're looking at the asset value as an exit later down the road, then here's what that means to you if you're able to support those numbers.
Perfect. So I send you my closet size, and then you'll send back a report with some designs and then kind of like a rundown of the costs and the ROI and then the potential exit value based off of whatever the cap rate is.
Correct. And we're just using real numbers here. We just say, look, this has got to make business sense to you guys. And so what we will then do is say, we can do one of two things. And a lot of our clients started out with a beta test. So they'll beta test it in, say, 20 units or 30 units. And they'll say, let's see if we can get supported rents on that. And then what's the amazing part about this, Theo, that I really like to see is when the client calls us back and says, hey, not only is it working, but oh, by the way, I'm getting ready to purchase more properties, or I need to put this in my existing other portfolio of properties. And they're either working with asset management or working with operations. And then we just either, again, we sit down and say, how do you need us to support you? Do you want us to support you by installing it and doing full turnkey with you? Do you want us to teach your staff, your maintenance team on how to install this directly? And we do. We have both in English and Spanish instructions and videos so that we can teach the maintenance teams. We then can say, and if not that, we can work with your GC directly. We can work with whoever your GC is, and we'll do the designs, we'll ship them the product, and they can do the installation during a renovation or a new build.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that I would need to see an increase of about $20 to $25 per month too. You said that's to cover the cost, right? Anything above that would be a return?
That's correct. And so some of the things that we've done that's very unique in the industry as a whole is, especially after post-COVID, what we recognized, Theo, was obviously everyone's being impacted right now. And so what we came out and looked at was twofold. If they're a large enough company, right now, all of our clients, and one of the reasons why we're doing podcasts like this is to talk to those groups that are not the current client base. Our current client base, most of them have portfolios of over 4 billion. So they're really large, 50,000, 100,000 units. But there is a massive market there, and I know you would agree with me on this. There's a massive market there of people that have 500, 1,000, 3,000, 4,000 units that this applies to. And the nice part is that we can say, look, you can turn to a number of companies and we can show you, those companies and what they're doing. They've crunched the numbers down to a point that it makes sense. But one of the things that we launched was a beta test that we're working through right now, which is where we will finance the deals personally. as a company. We will finance the deals for 4 years. Now, why would we do that? So then you have those portfolio of companies that say, look, I don't have the budget for this. I love the idea. I want to do it, but I don't want to wait for a CapEx. So what do I do? And so what we said was, let's try to start working with partners and working step in step with them to finance them. And so we're now beta testing with some very large companies out there, but we're open to conversations with others as well if it makes sense. I mean, it has to make sense. But then on the other side of that, we can sell them just the raw materials. And so if we just sell the raw materials, Theo, that $20 break right there, that's for us as a full turnkey. If we're talking just the raw materials, at about $16 a month in rent increase, they're at a break-even stance if they're using their own labor. So we've seen.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out, because I'm not sure if you guys, so do you guys do the kind of the I guess the rent comp analysis? Like in your report, will you say that here's how we know how much you'll get in rent increase, or is that something that me, the operator, will have to do on my end? And the reason why I'm asking this is because I want to know if this type of closet is in demand, like nationwide, or is it across all asset classes for multifamily, or is it specific to, class A in big metro markets? Like where are your clients located? Are they everywhere? Like, can I do this everywhere, or will I need to be in a certain spot?
So, I'm going to go pre-COVID, and I'll talk about post-COVID here for a minute, because it has been a big impact on again, our business, but everyone else's too. Pre-COVID, what we found is, and we still find this to be the case, it's almost a no-brainer at the A class. At the A class, they're able to get the rent increases. At the B, it really depends on the B class and what they're trying to do or where they want to spend their dollars, again, on the renovation side. But we have completely, I would say, if I had to look at it, A's we are probably very dominant in, B's are secondary, but we have been able to get the numbers to make sense in the B class. And really the B class is where we started, because if we can make it work in the B, we can definitely make it work in the A. And so those are the two classes that I would say it definitely makes sense to have a conversation on. What I would tell you is pre-COVID, we were doing a tremendous amount of business on the East, West Coast, your major metros, down to what I consider your secondary markets. So like St. Paul, Minnesota, we've done work in Seattle, New York, New Jersey, Florida. Some of these markets, post-COVID now have definitely slowed down or have been on lockdown. So one of the things I would say is, and I think your audience would agree, that you don't want necessarily contractors coming in, and potentially impacting their residents or exposing their residents to things. So some of these markets where it's been on heavy lockdown, it's slowed down, but we fully expect it to open back up. And yes, the major metros are where we see the most demand because there's so much more competition. And one of the things that we try to teach and educate on is that instead of giving up concessions, like here in Dallas, it's very competitive here. And so a lot of the ownership are giving major concessions, in my opinion. Instead of giving them concessions that are going to burn off, why not look at something that's going to increase the asset value, stay there, and be there permanently in the property? And so one of the things that a number of our clients have done is said, look, we'll upgrade your closet at no cost to you or at a nominal cost to you, or they'll do it on the lease up. And so that's a strategy that they're taking in these competitive marketplaces to not only differentiate, but retain the client base.
And then last question before the money question. I think you mentioned this already. So you said this takes 3 hours to install?
Correct. It's a no-cut product. So literally we could go sell this product right now in a retail space, and we've had a couple major retailers approach us on it. That's not what we designed this for. This product was originally designed and from the ground floor up as being a multifamily, or that includes senior living, student housing, even large REITs that have single family homes. Groups like Tricon and so forth are coming out to us because they own a number of doors. And so it's a product that can be installed. If you're our installer base, they're installing about 20 units a day, a team of 2. It's amazing.
Wow.
But they do this day in and day out.
Sure.
So we'd always say about 3 hours is what the average would take for someone that's a novice at it.
Okay. Got it. All right, Jim, what is your best real estate investing advice ever?
Well, as a passive investor, and it's not rocket science, I'm not in the business on a daily basis. And so what I tend to do is lean on those who are experts. So leaning on business partners that are in real estate business that have what I call a track record that I can vet out, working with my legal team, my accounting team. It is really critical, especially if you're a passive investor that's not in the day-to-days of what's going on and with the market going, things going on with the market today, is that I lean on my team and making sure that they're vetted out, that I can trust them. That trust is majorly important to me, and being able to depend on them to give me sound wisdom and guidance so that I can make decisions and putting my money, placing my money where it needs to be. So the best advice I can give, especially if you're a passive investor and not in it on a daily basis, is trust your team, but make sure you vet them out. Make sure that you're sitting there and talking to them. If they give you references, call the references. At the end of the day, I feel that I'm a protector of my money, and so whoever I'm going to trust to put my money to work for me, they need to be vetted. They need to be trusted, especially in today's marketplace.
100%. All right, Jim, are you ready for the best ever lightning round?
Absolutely. Throw it at me.
Okay, Jim, what is the best ever book you've recently read?
Blitzscaling by Reid Hoffman. He's the co-founder of LinkedIn, if you've never heard of him. He's also one of the original founding executives for PayPal. He's in Silicon Valley, amazing guy, but Blitzscaling is all about taking and doing beta testing, test, and then scaling it up as quickly as you can in a very informed way, but making sure that you're doing it with numbers versus just pure emotion. A lot of times we go off emotion, especially as an entrepreneur like myself, and it's all about doing it in a formula in a way that allows you to scale so quickly. As I told you before, Clozzits 2 years in the business, and we're already nationwide, so we're moving fast. And I have to say, Blitzscaling is one of those books that help entrepreneurs out a lot.
If your business were to collapse today, no one wanted Clozzits anymore for some reason, what would you do next?
Well, first off, it's not going to. I'm confident of that. But if it were to, for myself, there's two things that I'm pulled into. One is I love companies that are growing. They have a growth strategy. And so you would find me in executive operations for another company that is looking to try to grow and scale in a very unique way. As I like to call it, a disruptor. That's why I look at Clozzits as we're a disruptor. We're really in the business of, of getting ownership to make more money. But I would be working there, and I'd also be working with startup founders. There's a lot of millennials out there, Theo, that do not have necessarily the guidance or the tools. I'd love to help out, and that's one of the things I'm working on is helping them out and seeing how they can grow their vision and their ideas.
What is the best ever way you like to give back?
So there are 3 charities that we're heavily involved in Clozzits, but also with myself personally. Actually, in our offices here, there's 2 of them literally in our offices here. That's how committed we are. One of them is called Living for Zachary. And Living for Zachary is a local, it's not a national group, out of Dallas, Texas. And it's focused on defibrillators for at-risk kids who do not know they're at risk. They're athletes and so forth. There's a lot of sudden cardiac arrest that occurs on the field or when they're practicing. And this is a way to give free defibrillators to schools in case a sudden cardiac event happens. The other one is called Ring of Hope. It's an at-risk boxing ring. We have 3 of them here in the Dallas area. We're getting ready to go to Detroit and a couple other areas. And it's to bring inner city kids in to teach them the word, the gospel, but also to teach them how to really focus on education. I'm first generation Theo, high school graduate, college graduate, and I'm a major proponent of education. And so getting these kids into school and out of the inner city or areas where they're at risk to get into drugs or violence is critically important. So Ring of Hope is the other one. And then the last one is Catholic Charities. So, that's tied to my faith and focusing on Catholic charities.
Before the last question, so are you actually in a closet right now, or is that just like on your office on
No,
a back wall? Like,
actually, if I go over right now, I can literally touch this product right now. This is a closet system. These are the shoes. What I can tell you, Theo, this one's actually about 12 foot long. It's a long one here. Our product is a 3/4 inch plywood. Our product's not particle wood. It's not a cheap product. It's a melamine based product. We've got 3 plants that make it for us here. And so we're very proud to show it off. So we actually have clients that come in all the time. This is not my office. This is our conference room.
oh, it's
But when
conference
they
room.
come in,
Okay.
they go, wow, that's really amazing. And they can see and touch it and go, yeah, people would pay for this. And so people ask us all the time on
Yeah, I
calls,
bet.
is that real?
Well, I was asking if you were actually, there's one other person I've interviewed before who was actually in their closet, and so I was like, oh, he's in his closet. Interesting, but I know
I will,
now it
I
makes a lot
will,
more sense.
I will turn it so you get to see the whole thing.
There you
It goes,
go.
it goes all the way down. I'm very proud of it. It's a floating system, so
Mm.
it floats. Actually, we have drawers in it, so it becomes a furniture grade product. So for a lot of those A-class properties, they want something like this because a lot of us don't want to have the furniture, don't have the space for the furniture. And so,
Sure, yeah.
and you can see the top right there. And so it actually becomes a lot more shelving. So it's something that I love, and I think a lot of our folks are. You know, I always tell people, and I'll show it real quick. When you got wire racking here or this, I can tell you right now, that's going to get a rent increase over this, over
100,
wire
yeah,
racking. And this is what we see most often, or MDF.
exactly. All right, Jim. Well, thanks for joining me. It's been very fascinating. I definitely want to look into this some more. So make sure you check out his website, Clozzits, Clozzits.com. And it talks about really the benefits and advantages of focusing on the closet space at your existing properties in order to get a rent increase, and which would ultimately result in a higher ROI and a higher property value. And then something else you also mentioned that was interesting was if you're in a really competitive market, rather than offering some sort of like rent concession, like, hey, you'll have a reduced month rent, or some days you mentioned that burns off over time, you can give them a free closet that will, obviously they will get it for free, but then the next person moves in, you'll be able to realize that gain. Plus, you'll be able to get someone in there, reduce your vacancy, reduce your loss of lease, everything like that. So again, Jim, really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. Best of listeners, as always. Thank you for listening. Have a best ever day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.